Sat down today with Adam Trenk, new owner of Billy Cook Saddles, a name that's been around the horse world for a long time, and have a really cool conversation about his journey, from an early age, being around horses to where he is today. We dive into some of what's going on in the world today, with the coronavirus and some of the challenges that it's put upon us. And we talk about things that, like that are out of our control and how we handle those and have the right mindset and try to have gratitude in situations like that. But it was inspiring to hear his visions for the saddle company, where he sees that going and some of the plans that he has in store for it. So y'all check out this episode. Let us know what you think. Tell me a little bit about your journey, though, man. You seem like an interesting cat and who has done a number of things very well. And we'll go back, I guess. What got you into horses? Did you grow up around it, or were your folks involved with horses, or what was it?
Well, I grew up in the great Cowboy state of New Jersey. My family has been in New Jersey for 4 generations until I was born. Shortly thereafter, my Uncle Jeff moved out to Arizona. And I traveled back and forth to Arizona as a kid many times and always kind of wanted to end up out west. But we got started riding in my family when my grandfather was a little kid. His grandparents had a chicken farm in southern New Jersey. And when he was a little kid, he got a pony. And that sort of was the genesis of it. And then before I was born, he started working in the thoroughbred racing industry in a pretty significant capacity, managing tracks. And had a bunch of friends in that industry. And of course, my father and my uncle were around him at that time and sort of took their riding more seriously as they got a little older. They grew up riding ponies and going on trail rides and that kind of thing, but then got more involved when my grandfather got involved in the racing industry. And so my entire life, I've been around it. And then just kind of making a long story short, when I was in high school, it was always something that interested me. But I also had a tendency to get into some trouble. And my dad decided that he needed to separate me from the hooligans I was hanging out with after the summer of my sophomore year going into junior year of high school. And so through his connections in the horse industry, got in touch with a gentleman by the name of Zane Davis, who today is one of my best friends, who's a rein cow horse trainer, and sent me for the summer. My first summer with him was that summer going into my junior year of high school. And I apprenticed as a horse trainer with him and learned everything Cowboy and, how to break colts and fix fences and pull weeds and pick rocks and all the fun stuff that goes along with it that nobody really ever talks about.
Yeah, right. That was where? That was in Montana and in Idaho?
Yep, Montana and Idaho.
How old were you?
I was turning 16.
Okay.
So that summer, my first summer there, I turned 16. I started out 15 years old.
So did you have a passion for horses and training before that, or was there something that happened while you were with Zane that kind of opened your eyes to it?
No, I had been riding my whole life and always loved it. I couldn't say I was any good at it, although probably better than some of the kids who were around New Jersey at the time.
Yeah.
But I think in my father's wisdom, he figured that was a place he could send me to keep me from getting in trouble that I wouldn't resist because I like horses. So.
Yeah, I got you. Man, New Jersey, I can't stand that place. Like I said, I was in pharmaceutical sales, and we'd have to go up there for meetings, and it just seemed like it was always cold and gray, and I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I won't try and sell you on the weather, but there are parts of New Jersey that are really cool. Where I grew up, about 30 miles west of New York City, it was what I would describe as suburban. So there weren't horses in the backyards or anything like that, even though you had a yard. Yeah. We kept horses another 30 miles west of that. Growing up, and out there, it used to be really beautiful, a lot of farms and that kind of thing. Today, it's housing developments. Over the last 20, 25 years, it's really developed quite a bit. But the barn that I grew up riding at actually still exists. Their footprint has shrunk quite a bit as the lands that we used to be able to ride on have sold off and been developed into homes. But until last June, I was much more active in one of my family's business enterprises and was back and forth to New York and New Jersey about once a month for 1 week a month. Last June, I sort of decided that I had had enough of that travel And so I've only been back there twice since June, just, family events and that kind of thing. I was supposed to be there in early March, about a month ago, right as this coronavirus situation was starting to unfold, and I canceled my trip. I decided that was not a good time to go there, and I'm glad I did. I don't think I missed out on much.
Right. Right. So did you start showing after that? Was it a summer up there with Zane? After the first time you went up there, did you start in the show world?
No, I never really got involved in showing horses. That's never really been my thing. As a kid, probably prior to my summer in my first summer in Montana, I did some gymkhanas and that sort of thing, but I never got involved hauling horses to shows. To me, it was more about working one-on-one with the animal than, throwing them in a trailer and hauling and, following rules.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess if we fast forward, what led you down the law path? How did you end up going down that road?
Well, initially when I enrolled in college when I was 18, I thought I wanted to be a large animal vet, but I also knew I wanted to move out west. And as I mentioned, my dad was a little bit concerned that if I was left to run around somewhere in the country unsupervised, I might get into trouble. So my choices of where I could live were narrowed down. It was either stay in New Jersey or go to Arizona, where my uncle that I mentioned was living at the time. And so it became ASU. And so I went to Arizona State University and enrolled in the business management program. That's what my undergrad degree is in. And that sort of set any dreams or aspirations of becoming a large animal veterinarian on the back burner. Yeah. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do during those 4 years. In fact, if you had asked me then, I would have told you I was going to move back to New Jersey. But then I graduated, and moving back to New Jersey didn't seem so appealing. And I actually ended up working in real estate a little bit myself. And my grandfather and I had been talking, and he sort of advised me. He thought I would make a good attorney. He said, I'm good at arguing. I'm good with my words. And that even if I never practiced law, it would serve me well in a real estate career. So I decided that probably was pretty good advice, especially since he agreed that he was going to help me pay for it. And I took the LSAT exam and ended up going to law school at ASU after about 2 years fighting to get in, which is a whole nother story I could bore you with. But ended up getting the law degree, getting somewhat more involved in the community here. I ended up, during that time, I was buying and rehabbing and flipping homes, and always with the goal of having my own horse property so I could keep my horse in my backyard. And ended up here in Cave Creek, which is where I live now.
Right. How far are you from Sedona?
A little bit more than an hour, maybe.
Okay. I only asked that.
80 or 90 miles north. I guess it'd be northwest of here.
I got you. I was up there sometime last fall, and beautiful place, man. That was my first time in Arizona, but I'd love to get back out there.
Yeah, Sedona's gorgeous. Cave Creek is pretty too, but we don't have all the red rocks.
Uh-huh.
We got quite a bit of mountains. I mean, we're very well situated here. It's sort of the northern part of the Phoenix metropolis. Yeah. I've been living in this area for 12 years. You can ride off the property in any direction and go trail riding. And then there's any number of places you can haul to and, rope or mess around, go to a sorting or.
Yeah, that's great. So what's your place like? What's your setup like?
I bought just a single family, single level ranch house in 2008. And it was really just no frills, just a house, but it had a nice barn and a good turnout. So I brought my horse over, and within a year I had 3 other horses there. I was keeping 4 horses at the house. And then in 2000, I want to say it was 2013, maybe it was 2014, I ended up buying the house that I'm living in now, which is directly across the street from the house I used to live in. When it came on the market, I liked the way it was situated better. It was on the north side of the road, and the backyard faced to the north, facing the mountains. Yeah. I just thought it was, better views. And the market was weaker at that time, so I got this house at a better price. When I bought it, it didn't have any horse setup at all on this property, and I've since built that up. I've got a pretty large turnout corral. It's kind of L-shaped, or even like a capital P almost. It's got a big round area, and then like an alley that runs down the horses can run, and I've got a 4-stall Mare motel.
Right on. So you doing some breeding too?
Well, just Mare motel, just in the sense that it's a barn with no walls.
I got you.
There's only one mare on the property now, and she's too old to breed. So
I see. I got you, man. Tell me a little bit about ASU. I hear that is the place to go.
When I went there, it was a lot of fun. I can't tell you what it's like now. I know. Well, in 2001, one of the selling points of me agreeing to go to school there was that it was ranked by Playboy as the #1 party school in the nation. So
yeah,
that probably tells you all you need to know.
Well,
it lived up to that reputation. So much so that when I had the opportunity to re-enroll and go to law school, I wasn't fighting it.
Yeah, that's great. So how many years, what is that? 6 years you were there then? 7 years?
8 out of 9 years at ASU. So I did a 4-year undergrad, then I took a year off, and then part of that story of how I ended up in law school, I did a 1-year accelerated master's program in real estate development in order to bring my GPA up high enough so that they'd admit me to law school. And then law school is a 3-year program.
Right on.
And every minute of it was fun. But thinking back on it, it was exhausting too.
Yeah. How did how did you shorten it? With it being the #1 party school, how did you get through school in a shorter amount of time? I mean, that takes a lot of dedication. Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I've always had a pretty good work ethic, and I've never been one to sleep in. So I just somehow managed to get through it. I'd always get my work done in the morning. I try to remember what my routine was like back then, but it was pretty much wake up. When I was living in Scottsdale going to ASU, I boarded my horse at a neighboring property that a guy who I'm still friends with owns. I'd wake up, go check on the horse, a couple days a week, get on him and lope him around a little bit. And then I'd go down to my classes, and then I'd go to the gym, and then I'd, either do homework or go out and party, and some days both.
That's great.
I had a pretty good routine though.
Yeah, that's great. Do you still reach out to Zane, or do you still go up and hang out with him and ride a little bit?
Yeah, I talk to him frequently. He's living in Idaho these days, and the last couple summers I've taken a week off and hauled up there with one of my horses and just ridden with him and sort of turn the cell phone off and get back to a little bit of the connection with the horse in a way that even today I wish I got to do more of. I mean, it's sort of like complaining over what you have for lunch when you pack it yourself, but my lifestyle is such and my career is such that I'm always on the phone or always having to respond to a text message or an email. So even when I ride and I'm in town, I don't feel like I have the same kind of connection, particularly when you're riding a young horse that commands 100% of your bandwidth. So it's nice to get up there and partake in that with him.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I got some buddies that work out at the Sixes, and just being out there in Guthrie, I mean, there's nothing else, very limited phone service. And it's like, I envy that life in a way, because it's not to say that what they do isn't hard work, but they enjoy it. It's something that you enjoy doing, and it does give you a mental break. It's almost meditative in a way to just get on the back of a horse and go ride for miles and miles, without having to answer a text or an email.
Took the words right out of my mouth. It is sort of my meditation. I've had that discussion with several people in the past that it's hard to explain because, people do wonder, well, what is a guy like you doing with 6 horses in your backyard? And it's like, well, I don't compete on them, and they're not other than, I do some equine related legal work and that kind of thing. I don't use them to make money, but they are, for me, they sort of are my baseline. And when I was in law school and living in Cave Creek and I had the horses at home, this kind of goes back to your last question, no matter who I was hanging out with or what I was out doing, I always had to come home and feed my horses before I went to bed. And I always had to wake up early in the morning and feed them. And it sort of kept me in a routine and sort of kept my head on straight. So they've paid me dividends in that sense. And to this day, the structure that gives me, even when I'm traveling, it gives me a reason I need to come home. If I was in New York or New Jersey for work or, any of the other places that I occasionally have to travel to, I'm always quick to come home to that. So.
Yeah, and most of the folks that I've sat down with so far have been involved with horses from a young age, and I think that's very important because you can just tell just from talking with them the amount of respect they have, not only for horses but for other people, and the work ethic they have. It's like that by having to maintain another animal like a horse and feed it and train it, it just creates that habit, the work ethic, the routines like you're talking about. and that carries over into anything in life, and I think that's what draws me to it. I think that the psychology for me is what really hooks me in, just trying to figure out how they think and get into their mindset. Yeah, my producer, he does not come from the horse world, and he came out to my place the other day, and I've got a little 2-year-old and an older gelding, and he was just baffled at the fact they didn't know their name. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's not a dog. But yeah, their names are more for people.
That's interesting. The way you communicate with them is just not verbal, but I think they understand everything you mean if you know how to tell them.
That's right. I read a book by Dick Pieper called The Language of Horsemanship, and that was a vital book and vital information. Dick's now a good friend of mine, and he actually just came in this past weekend, owner of Playgun, and I mean it talks about that. I mean, you communicate with these horses, but it's a different language. It's not words, but
sure.
That's what I guess keeps me coming back. Climbing on a 2-year-old. And again, I'm just an amateur at best. I'm not no well-known trainer by any means of the word, but it interests me, I guess. But let's talk about
that. I've not read that book, but I know it sounds like I know what he's talking about, and I'd be interested in reading it.
I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to send you those shirts, and I'm also going to send you that book, man. I think you'd enjoy it. And he has such a way. He has a tremendous amount of knowledge, but he has such a way of explaining things in a very simple way. I think there's a lot of good horse trainers out there, and some of them may try to overcomplicate things, or may not. Maybe they just don't know how to explain it simply, but he does a very good job of doing that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about what's going on right now, man. COVID-19 and how that's impacted you and your business.
Well, it's been kind of a crazy ride the last few months. So after I sort of stepped aside my role consulting in the aviation business back east, I was sort of on the hunt for something else to do. I mean, I have my day job as a lawyer, but I've always been one to have several irons in the fire. And in October of last year, when I learned that Billy Cook, the man, had passed away, and having been riding in his saddles and created just tremendous amount of great memories using that equipment, I felt connected to it, and I wanted to know what was going to happen with the company. And it wasn't one of those things where I was like, oh, I got to run out there and acquire this and I'm going to run it myself. I really wasn't in the hunt for that. I just found out that he passed away and was curious. Like, I thought it would be a shame if it went away. And I was in the hunt for something else to do, but I really hadn't put the two together immediately. And then on October 17th or 18th, I got bucked off one of my horses and I broke my hand. And so I spent the next couple weeks in a cast. And during that time, I was on the computer just Googling, reading, and making a lot of people nuts, probably particularly the attorney who was representing Mr. Cook's estate. And I finally got my answer, and it was that they were going to shut the company down at the end of the year because they didn't have the funds to keep it going. And Billy Cook's kids were all pretty much grown and had never been involved with him in the business. So making a long story short, I bought the saddle company, and we closed on it at the end of last year. And really my first time ever even seeing the factory or meeting the employees was in early January of this year. And for 10 weeks, we were rocking and rolling. And we had probably 80% of the orders that the company had taken in the entire year prior within 8 to 10 weeks, and everything was looking up. And my last trip there was about a month ago, and I remember driving back from Oklahoma to Arizona, which is just it's a full one-day drive. I mean, it was 18 hours in the truck, And I remember listening to the radio about this outbreak and what was going on back east, and I had canceled my trip to New York the week prior, thinking, boy, I wonder what this is going to mean for us. And the first week, I guess it was that week of St. Patrick's Day. Right? It was like March 15th. I remember it was that Monday. I remember speaking on the phone to Jody Raymer, who is our general manager of production, who'd been working with Billy for the better part of 30 years. And he said, oh, don't worry about it. What's going on in New York and going on in Chicago and Los Angeles isn't going to affect Oklahoma. And every day it sort of got closer and closer to home until last week. The governor of Oklahoma issued an order basically saying that all non-essential businesses have to shut down. And of course, the schools are all closed. So, I've have an entrepreneurial spirit, but I've never been a business owner and in charge of the lives of employees and their, the way that they make their way through the world in this capacity before. And I had to make a decision about whether or not we're going to keep the factory open. And we could have stayed open, I believe, under an exception or a classification as an essential business because we make farm and ranch equipment. And I was hoping to stay open because, of course, we have all these orders that we need to fill. And I told the employees, listen, I'm not going to tell you that you have to come to work, right? Your kids are home from school. This is a scary time. Things are uncertain. If you don't want to come here, you don't have to come. But we're going to be open. And about half the staff took that to heart and didn't show up the next day. And we did make the decision last Friday that until things blow over, we're going to have to close it down because we just can't be productive enough to justify the overhead cost of staying open with half of our staff. So it's impacting me in a big way. It's sort of one of those put your dreams on hold moments. Yeah. But the good news is, I guess if there is any good news in this situation, is that the whole world is experiencing it. It's not just us. So I can't make it about me. I can't make it about our employees. We just have to kind of band together and get through it together. The federal government, as I'm sure you're aware, passed some legislation that they're going to be giving out some loans for emergency disaster relief. And my law practice has been busy helping all of our clients with that sort of thing anyway. So I'm pretty well versed in it. We've got our application in. I've spoken with the banker every day since last Friday when they started taking the applications. In fact, I just got off the phone with them a little bit before I heard from you, telling me that I was late for the call.
That's my fault.
And, he tells me that we're at the front of his list. It's a community bank in Sulphur, Oklahoma. So as soon as the loan gets processed, we'll be able to put everybody back on payroll. And we'll pay them in lieu of them collecting unemployment, but we'll probably remain closed, until the governor says that life can resume to normal in that part of the country.
How many employees do you have there?
I believe we have 17 in the shop, and then we have one lady off-site who works as our CFO, but she's also a CPA by day, so she works in an office sort of on the other side of town. But the other side of Sulphur is like maybe a half a mile away. So she's in and out of the shop quite a bit, helping us manage our books and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy times, man. I mean, it's like nothing we've ever seen before, and you said it. I mean, to find the good in it, to be grateful for it, it can be challenging, but we don't understand why. We don't know why this has happened or has happened, and there's a number of people that have lost their jobs and they can't go to work or they've lost loved ones. But that's something I try to do in, everyday life, whatever may come up, good, bad, ugly. I try to find the gratitude in it because we don't know what's on the other side of this, for whatever reason this is happening.
Well, you and I have never met before, but I feel like you're saying a lot of things that I can really relate to. I mean, there are a couple things for me personally. You got to keep a positive outlook. I mean, to despair is, giving up, and that's just not in my DNA. And then the other side of this thing is it's unprecedented, and we don't know when we've reached the bottom. And so, I consider myself somewhat of a strategist, and, some of the consulting work I've done, it's always about helping my clients see the landscape and, figure out where the obstacles are and how to get around them. What's most challenging is we don't really know where the end of this is. When are we going to hit the bottom floor and be able to start coming up? So to plan and to be able to react to this is almost impossible. And that's personally very frustrating, but I am kind of seeing it as a blessing. I'm working from home, pretty much 95% of the time the last 3 weeks. We got this Zoom thing that we're using right now and that all my clients and I've been getting on. I've got an internet connection, and I'm saving probably an hour and a half to 2 hours a day in the car, and I'm using that time outside messing with my horses and keeping my yard clean and doing the things that, make me happy. So
yeah,
I'm very fortunate that I don't have to worry about where my next meal is coming from because I still have my day job as a lawyer, and that's still pretty busy. And I'm just hopeful that the government funding comes through and that the saddle shop is able to, continue on.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's the unknown, everything that's going on right now is the unknown. And really, with my real estate company, it's just we have weekly meetings, daily meetings, and that's what it is. It's day to day, really, at this point. I mean, we're considered essential, so we're still having to operate, and deal with work orders and things like that.
Are you on the development side, or are you on the management side, or?
Both. I mean, I have a couple hundred houses, single family houses, and some apartments. So we're buying and flipping and renovating. And also I have my own management company as well. So kind of everything.
So the forbearance of rents or the forgiveness of rents, that you're going to have to be grappling with that quite a bit.
Yeah. And it's, again, it was the unknown. We didn't know what to expect, but it hasn't been bad. We've gotten a few phone calls with folks that either lost their job or they're saying, hey, I'm going to be a little late with rent this month. But of course we waive all late fees, and the governor, you can't evict anybody anyway. And so, it's been good though. It could definitely be worse,
I was going to say, by good, I think I know what you mean. And that is not as bad as it could be.
Yeah. And that, I think it was, I don't know if you listen to Rich Roll. Rich Roll has a podcast, and he was talking about COVID-19 and what we're going through right now and how everybody is freaked out about it. And it's like, man, it could be so much worse. I mean, yeah, it's bad. I'm not trying to diminish the fact that it's not ideal in any way. It's not, but it could be so much worse, I mean, we're still breathing air, and we're able to communicate via internet. I mean, we still have a lot of things and that's the thing that I think we need to find the gratitude in, even the little things. And for me, it was stillness, like the very first week they quarantined us here in Louisiana. It was like, man, I started writing so much more, and I just went in deep, like this inner dive, and just to try to find the stillness and find the little things to be grateful for, and I think that it just is something as simple as being able to leave your house and go to work, the little things that we take for granted every single day. And I don't mean to get woo-woo or anything like that on everybody, but I'm a firm believer in gratitude and just finding the good in everything.
Yeah, I can certainly appreciate that. I mean, it does feel to me like there's some sort of a societal reset that is transpiring. I've been living in Cave Creek for 12 years on the same block on one side of the street or the other for the most part. And I've met neighbors that I had never met before who are out now in the middle of the day walking with their kids. We're very lucky that in March and April in Arizona is gorgeous, right? It's been 70 degrees and sunny. So everybody wants to be out, and you're seeing people who normally I'm outside my house early in the morning or in the evening. And then, on the weekends, I'm either hauling my horses off the property or, doing something like that, trail riding or going to work on a buddy's ranch or any number of things. So I don't have a ton of interaction with my neighbors these days. And it's nice. I mean, it could definitely be a lot worse. I wish that the stress of the money situation wasn't there, but like I said, I'm not too worried about where my next meal comes from. And I do consider myself very fortunate that I find myself going through this in a position where one way or another, I'm going to survive it. And happy that everybody in my family's got their health, and maybe this, like you say, gives everyone in the world the opportunity to take a step back and appreciate the little things a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the way I look at it, like an opportunity, I read a lot of Stoic Philosophy, and the Stoicism 101 is control what you can control, and let everything else go. And as challenging as that is, especially in times like this, worrying doesn't do anything, so I try to stay abreast with enough knowledge to stay safe. I'm not trying to diminish or be naive about the severity of it or what it could potentially do. But at the same time, I don't want to dwell on it, and just, I don't have TV, like I don't have cable or anything. So I don't watch the news, because I think that can be counterproductive, if we just let that stuff flood in, and that's something that we can control. So I try to tune that out.
I'm with you there for sure.
So let me ask you this then. Somebody gives you $100 million today, or, you mentioned money. So let's say you get enough money, you don't have to worry about working another day in your life. What do you do tomorrow?
I have some acreage. And you asked me earlier if I'm breeding and raising horses. I'm not doing that, but that is something that I'd like to do.
Any specific discipline?
Well, I mean, I ride Western. I've done some cutting. I've done some reining. I've done some team roping. I've done some mounted shooting. Mostly what I do is trail riding. And I think that what the world needs more of is a versatile ranch horse. So I'd probably breed for that because it's what I like to ride. Something that, you know, I've got a couple in my backyard that I can get on and do anything. And then I've got a couple who, you know, they're great at trail riding, but if they see a cow, they want to take you through a fence. And then I've got one out there that's the opposite, who's a great little cow horse. I mean, he'll cut on anything and you can rope off of him, but you get him out there on the trail and he'll just jig you all day. Bop, 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 bop. You know, he never settles down. So, yeah, probably just something like that. I don't think I'd want to breed for volume. You know, I'd want to make sure that I was pretty selective about the genetics that I put together and breed for conformation over color. But of course, the roans are popular, but I liked them even before they were in vogue. So maybe those blue roan things are nice. I don't know. But yeah, I would like to have an escape from it all. I mean, I'm again blessed to live in sort of a rural area, but if I had more money than I knew what to do with, I definitely want to be on a ranch. That's kind of the dream.
What would that climate be? Have you got it figured out? What area?
Probably southern Colorado or northern Arizona. Yeah, I like. I'm not much for cold weather. I've been living in Arizona way too long to get along with the snow. Yeah. So someplace with very mild winters.
Come to Louisiana, man.
I don't love the rain and the humidity either, though. So
don't come in the summer then. When humidity
I have to visit
is
you
terrible.
after hurricane season.
Yeah. I'm curious to know. You know, I think it was Jim Rohn that said we are the sum of the 5 people that we surround ourselves with. And you mentioned Zane Davis, you know, and somewhat learning from him. I'm curious to know, and you don't have to name names, but some of those people and what they bring, you know, that are in your circle, your immediate circle, those folks you reach out to for advice or whatnot. Maybe what they do, what their occupation is, or maybe what they bring to you know, just be a sounding board for you at times.
Sure. Well, my closest relationship in life is probably with my grandfather. He's 90 years old. He's a serial entrepreneur, born and raised in New Jersey, but lives back and forth between Florida and New York City now at this stage of his life. He's my sounding board for just about everything. My father probably be number 2 on that list. I talk to him about almost the same range of things, although the relationship there is definitely a different dynamic, the father-son versus the, you know, grandson-grandfather relationship. My girlfriend who lives with me now, I seem to talk to her an awful lot, especially since we haven't left the house much for almost a month. Yeah. You know, so, and she's pretty good. She's a pretty good anchor, and you know.
Now, does she come from a horse background as well?
She grew up in Minnesota, but the common interest of horses is what brought us together. So that one mare I mentioned that's in the backyard belongs to her.
I got you.
Who else? There's Zane, definitely on the horse training side. My managing partner at my law firm, Jordan Rose, is somebody that I talk to about business ideas all the time. And then, of course, I have to say my childhood buddies. I got a couple of friends, those same derelicts my father tried to separate me from to send me to Montana to stay out of jail when I was a kid. I remain in pretty close touch with all of them. And although we don't see each other as much as we'd like to, whenever I would get back east for work, I'd see them, and we talk on the phone all the time. And they keep me laughing, those guys. I mean, our sense of humor is probably not kosher, but you know, just in all the stress, particularly during the COVID-19 crisis, I mean, nothing is sacred, and we just crack up all the time. So
I think we all have a select few of those buddies.
Yeah. You know, I think that laughter is really the best medicine, and I don't take myself too seriously. I mean, I probably am coming across serious in this conversation because you and I don't really know each other, but you know, I like to laugh and have a good time. And I got to say, I got another buddy who lives here he's my farrier also, and that's how we met. He started out as my horseshoer, but he lives around the corner from me. And probably other than Ashley, who I'm living with, I see Tommy more than anybody else these last couple of weeks, and he's been helping keep me sane. And we've been riding together a little bit on the weekends and that kind of thing. So,
yeah.
his take on all this that's going on in the world is way different than mine, and it's very refreshing.
Yeah, it is interesting to hear the different perspectives from different people. But you touched on something that has been coming up for me here lately, you know, with owning a business and with everything going on, we tend to lose sight of the fact, like, have fun, you know, to play. Like, it's okay to play just because we're not kids anymore. You know, I think like the way we've been socially conditioned, like you have to, you know, go to work and be serious and all this BS, you know, but that's been creeping up through my meditations and just journaling about it. It's like, no, man, just have fun. You know, like you're doing this shit because you enjoy doing it. It doesn't have to be serious all the time, you know?
Sure.
I'm curious though, see where I want to go next with this. I want to get in more of the Billy Cook stuff, and I'll save this other question I have. Where you see that going, you know, let's take COVID-19 out of the deal, and let's say we fast forward 3-6 months and we get past that. Where is the path you would like to see Billy Cook going? Because and you can probably answer this or expand on this a little more, but so Billy Cook saddle was actually the first saddle I ever rode, and he had a very good name, very good branding, marketing, and I'm going to assume it was because of it, you know, he got a little bit older and maybe didn't pay as much attention to the business. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. But it seems like you're a young cat, motivated, and I'm interested to know where you see that headed, you know, from a marketing and branding standpoint.
So the company's been around 67 years. Billy Cook started out as a saddle maker in his teenage years before he went into the Army. When he got out, he really pioneered what I'll refer to as the production saddle. And he brought, it's really not the same, but just to use an analogy that maybe the audience will relate to, he took Henry Ford's assembly line model to the saddle industry in a way that had never been done before. And so he became famous because he built a quality product, but he was able to turn them out in such a high enough volume that his costs were pushed down and they were affordable to people. And he became very popular because, you know, in a world where one man built one saddle over the course of 3 or 6 months, he's now cranking out a few saddles a week with his brand or his maker's mark on it. So he became very widely known, and because the product was high quality, he got a great reputation. And that reputation was perpetuated, in my mind, well into the early 2000s. And then there are a number of factors that, some of which is speculative, and I don't think you're way off the mark, and then others of which I know a little bit about, but I don't really want to share about why the quality of the product went down a little bit. But the biggest thing is like in the early 2000s, the world around Billy Cook was evolving. The internet came into vogue, and there was a new digital component to businesses that he never adapted to. I mean, when I took over the company a few months ago, it had a Facebook page that was very poorly operated, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it, and no website, no digital presence. And so the other interesting thing that happened is Billy Cook, and I never met him in person. I spoke to him on the phone a couple times while he was alive, but I didn't know him. So I hope it's not an unfair characterization. But what I've been told is he was a hell of a nice guy, and he was an incredible saddle maker, but he was a bad businessman. And so he got taken advantage of a little bit in the sense that he would train people to build saddles using his methods. But he never got any kind of contract from him that said they couldn't compete with him or do certain things. And so what he did was he actually spawned this whole industry out of Greenville, Texas, which took over the market share around him as he failed to evolve with, you know, the times. You know, the other companies were having websites and changing the styles of their saddles to keep up with the more modern Western culture and the evolutions of things, and his designs and his patterns stayed in the past. So enter Adam Trenk. What do I want to do with it? Well, there's a couple things. Number one, I think the quality of the saddles that the company's been turning out for the last couple of years are as good as they've ever been. I think before I came on board, I can't get any credit for that. They ratcheted back their production numbers and focused more on quality. And so the saddles are where they should be. and people love them. I mean, I have personally delivered several of them since I took the company over, and I am yet to meet somebody who's dissatisfied with the quality of the leather or the way that it fits the horse or the way they're assembled. What we don't have control over, frankly, right now is our costs. And so we've got to tighten this company down and deploy some efficiencies in our operation that will allow us to make money and to grow and to do some, again, for lack of a better way of describing it, research and development, come up with some new styles and implement some new technologies in the way that we manufacture the saddles so that we stay on the cutting edge of this. Because for a long time, even though Billy Cook cracked this industry open 50, 60 years ago, he's been at the back of the pack in terms of his innovation for the last 15, 20 years. So I want to bring it there. I want to get my arms around the fundamentals. I believe that we have our quality, or not our quality control, our costs under control now. It took me about 2 months to get there, but I understand what was going on and why our overheads seem to be so high. And I think that without raising our prices too much, we're in a position now to be profitable. And in the short term, that was really all I wanted to accomplish this year. And so if this crisis with the coronavirus passes, I think we're going to be in good shape, and we will we'll fill all of our orders. Hopefully we'll get more orders. We'll have a healthy margin in those, enough that we can then start to either purchase new equipment, sewing machines and cutters and all the things that you need in order to build a saddle that we're in our shop are tired. And our staff spends a lot of time maintaining that equipment that they could otherwise be spending building saddles and, adding to our bottom line without adding too much to our overhead. Yeah. So that's sort of phase one. Phase two for me is, I grew up back east, and I haven't mentioned my mother yet on this show. My mom also a tremendous influence in my life. My parents divorced when I was young, but my mother's a really strong woman, and my whole life growing up, she was always working, and she worked in retail, high-end luxury retail. I'm talking about like Gucci and Armani and these high-end designer brands, and they all have kind of one thing in common, and that's that they all come from Europe. I don't aspire to make clothes, but what is very interesting to me is that if you look at Gucci, you look at Hermes, you look at Carolina Herrera, and I think the other one is Fendi. These are all like super high-end luxury brands. They sell purses and wallets and things like that are leather goods for thousands and thousands of dollars. They all started out as saddle shops in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And America does not have a heritage brand that started out as a saddle manufacturer and makes really nice wallets, handbags, and belts and other leather accessories that, all of us, pretty much everybody in America either has a wallet or a purse, right? I mean, I've got my wallet sitting right here on my desk. Everybody's got one. And I don't know, call me a little hokey, but I think it'd be nice if we had some higher end stuff made right here in America. And I think that Billy Cook's legacy and his story, that narrative lends itself well to taking this brand in that direction. So that being said, I don't ever want to stop making saddles, but I'd like to make some other leather goods using the tools and talents of the people and that we have in our company to roll some of that stuff out. But in order to get there, again, we need to get the fundamentals of our saddle business down and do a little bit better there so that we have the time and the resources to expand in those directions. And so that's probably like the 3 to 5 year plan.
Just from the little bit we've been talking, I can tell you're a savvy cat, and I'm sure you did your due diligence with the saddle company and what goes into it. But my question is, had you ever had any experience building a saddle? Have you ever been involved with making anything like that, or is this just something that piqued your interest?
I never built a saddle before, and I still haven't. I have, since I took the company over, I've designed a couple, and I'm really happy with how those came out. In fact, I sent one up to Zane for him to ride. He's just using it as a training rig because he's got some other relationships and endorsements. But more than anything, he's just given me feedback on how we can improve our product line. And it was a design based on some conversations I had with him and just sort of my feeling of spending countless hours in saddles on the backs of horses doing different things, that I wanted a product that was like the horses that I told you I'd like to breed if I had more money than I knew what to do with. I'd like to have one saddle that can really do it all too. So that means being lightweight enough that you can ride in it all day, being sturdy enough that you can rope off of it and drag something with it. But then having, a deep enough seat that if your horse breaks in two, you don't get launched out of there, but also giving you enough movement for your legs to sway if you want to cut something or, move laterally. So I put one of those together, that I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think Zane was too. There's a couple things he's told me that we need to tweak for his next one. But in terms of the construction of it, I understand now way better than I did 3 months ago how it's done, but I have not gotten my hands dirty doing it. It's, I'm not much of an artist, just a consumer of those things, I guess.
Yeah.
We have artisans in our shop. I mean, everything that we produce is made by hand. I mean, we have cutters, big machines that cut the leather, and we have sewing machines, but all the tooling is done by hand, and all the sewing machines, none of it is automated. They all have human operators that are sitting there guiding these pieces of material through by hand. And I don't even want to pretend that I could do what they do. And they're exceptionally talented people.
Yeah, I got you. I checked out, doing my homework. I checked out y'all's website, and it's very nice, man. Whoever did that did a very good job with it.
Thank you.
But I noticed
I'm a harsher critic on myself than you are. There's a lot that I want to fix with that, but we'll get there.
Well, always, right? You always want everything to be better. I think you're always tweaking stuff. But yeah, I thought it looked fantastic. But I noticed you guys have. I mean, you guys are making saddles for every discipline. Do you see yourself continuing to do that, or would you like to find a niche in one of those specific disciplines?
I think we'll continue to make saddles for every discipline. I think I would like for the company to have a broad appeal. I think if horses are your thing, I want you to think of Billy Cook as the saddle that you want to ride and not feel like they don't make something for you. We do, barrel saddles, cutting saddles, reining saddles, show saddles, trail saddles, ranch saddles in a variety of different styles, team roping saddles, calf roping saddles. My understanding of the assembly process and manufacturing process is that it's essentially the same. I mean, the difference is in the tree that you use. And so if you know what the consumer wants, you can dress up that tree in any way, that you feel is necessary in order to meet the demand of the consumer. But, sourcing the trees for the variety of disciplines is not a problem. We stand behind our trees. We got a 5-year guarantee on all of our trees that go out the door. And, whatever people want, we'll make for them. And if it's not up on the website, just pick up the phone and call us or email us. I'm still trying to get Jody and some other guys in the shop to be responsive to email. But for now, if you email the company, you're talking to me. And I'll get on the phone with them and help facilitate a custom order.
How far out are you guys on those custom orders?
Before this coronavirus situation, it would be about 6 weeks.
Man, I'm curious to know about a name change. So you kept the Billy Cook name. What made you decide to do that versus changing the name of the company?
Well, frankly, when I bought the company, I think the most valuable asset that I got was the name and the maker's mark. And I'll give a shameless plug there. Can you see that? So that's our maker's mark. Yeah, and that's on all of our equipment. It's a registered trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and that's got 67 years of integrity standing behind it. And again, I never met Billy, but I spoke to him on the phone, and I grew up riding Billy Cook saddles, and I wouldn't ever think about changing that name. I think as long as we maintain the integrity that he had in his products at the beginning of his company's life cycle, we'll be in good shape for a long time. And it tells a story. I think it's in a lot of ways, it's the American dream, the life that he lived. I mean, I don't know too much about where he was in life before he started out as a saddle maker, but I know he was a self-made man. And, I think that the name says it all.
Yeah, I think anytime you can do what you love to do, which it seemed like he did, and you can make money at it, you win.
Yeah, for sure.
The question I like to ask every person that comes on the show, I think it's very important. Why? What is your why? What is your purpose? Whether it be law, whether it be Billy Cook saddles, what is it that gets Adam Trenk out of bed every morning?
Well, my horses get me out of bed every morning. If I don't get out there and pitch some hay at them, they start kicking the feeders. But I think relationships, having good friendships with good people, and helping other people succeed really does motivate me. The Billy Cook saddle to me as a kid, again, I grew up back east riding Western in a predominantly English riding environment, either, in thoroughbred racetrack environments or racehorse farms, and then English show barns basically is where we boarded our horses once my grandfather got out of the racing business. And I don't know, I rode that Billy Cook saddle that I got as a kid, and it helped me figure out who I was in that environment. It made me comfortable in my own skin. I didn't have to be a conformist. So I took that, and then when I went and spent my summers in Montana, Zane sort of helped me be who I was. I didn't have to be from Montana. I could be the snot-nosed kid from New Jersey, as long as I figured out my own way in the world. That was cool with him, kind of thing. Yeah. So taking that into my legal practice, my grandfather told me when I was younger, I always was good at arguing, and I've always kind of had a strategic mind, been able to sort of see the forest through the trees, kind of thing. And I just like, as a practitioner, helping people succeed, helping people accomplish their goals, grow their businesses, achieve whatever their objectives are. I mean, I give you an example. I got a client who owns a chain of car washes, and I've helped him grow that business from, one location to several locations. I've got another customer, or a client rather, who is in the pharmaceutical business, which you said you used to be in. He had been a distributor, and he decided, it seems easy enough. Why can't he become his own wholesale distributor? And we helped him get set up. And so I did this quite a bit. And then my family ended up in the aviation business, which is another story, when I was a pretty young kid. And about 6 years ago, I started working with them in a pretty intense capacity, enough that I was flying back east a lot and doing that sort of thing. And I helped my family overcome some threats and take advantage of some opportunities when Bill de Blasio became mayor of New York. And it was just around this time, I guess, last summer, where I was sort of burned out on doing that for other people and want to do a little bit more of it for myself. And that's what begat Billy Cook in one way or another. Like I said, when I first heard of his passing, it wasn't like, oh, I got to get my hands on this company, but it sort of made sense. It was like, horses and that culture has been my lifestyle my entire adult life. And I want to have some more fun with it. I think it'll open up some doors and do some really exciting things. I think we can make a good product and, frankly, help perpetuate or help continue the culture of the American cowboy, make it accessible to the rest of America. I mean, like you mentioned, you've been to New Jersey. It doesn't feel very cowboy there, and I mentioned my mom working in the retail business. She's selling a bunch of European crap, right? I think it would be really cool to bridge that gap and to, get the New York City market wearing Billy Cook belts and carrying Billy Cook wallets and being proud that stuff was made in America. And it'd be a product that's, affordable, but really high quality and makes them feel good about who they are and being themselves. So yeah, that's what's motivating me in this exercise.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And we sat down with Joey Jemison not long ago, and there seems to be a trend there because they're doing the same thing, branching out into other leather markets and doing some higher end belts and wallets and watch bands and things like that. So I can definitely see that taking off. And then plus, yeah, the being a cowboy is cool now. It's like when John Travolta came out with Urban Cowboy, all of a sudden being a cowboy was cool, and I think we're starting to see that again now. And do you follow Dale Brisby at all?
I do. Yep.
He's made being a cowboy cool again too. That's a funny dude, man.
Yeah, he cracks me up, indeed.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I was trying to think. Oh, I want to ask this question to you. I'm interested to hear your answer. If you could, hypothetically speaking, go back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, knowing what you know now and being, going through everything you've gone through, what would that advice be?
Probably to live in the moment a little more. I think I was always I was very much, well, two things: live in the moment more, sort of like appreciate what you're doing while you're doing it, rather than sort of wishing that you could go back and do it again. Just sort of savor it while it's happening. And then I also think care a little bit less about what other people's opinions are. I don't necessarily know that I'd be where I was if I didn't, at that stage of my life, feel like I had something to prove. But, growing up where I grew up, I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder and felt like I had to prove something to the world. And I think I was not always my own best friend.
Yeah.
And if I had learned that at 20, again, maybe I wouldn't be here right now, but I think I would be happier.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, just a lot of anxiety and nonsense, not letting yourself get worked up about the things that you can't control. But it's only been within like the last 2 years that I've really got my arms around that. And it is, in fact, one of the reasons that like about a year ago, I made the decision to do a little bit less traveling back east and, just more of the things that I enjoyed rather than feeling like I had to do anything for anybody else that didn't align with who I view myself as being as an individual.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah, I agree with you. And I asked myself that question a number of times, and our answers are very similar, and I think a lot of that may stem from ego. And I think ego is it can be good if used in a productive way. Like you said, that's what somewhat launched you into to do better and to get where you're at now. And I think that's why, that's where ego can benefit us. But when we start worrying about what other people may think or, the judgments, we worry about judgments. These are all just stories that we create in our own head, And
Sure.
that's why I say there's no universal reality. Our reality is just based on the perception, that we, as we view it. But, I'm always curious to know that answer. Well, I'm going to wrap it up, Adam, and it's been a pleasure just getting to know you just over this short amount of time. And I can tell from your ambition and your drive, you're going to take Billy Cook past this COVID-19 thing once we get through with that and do a lot of good things. So I'm curious to see and interested to see where you take it. And is there anything, are you guys going to be at any shows or anything? Give you a chance to plug it. Or where can people find out more about Billy Cook Saddles?
In the immediate future, we don't have plans to be set up anywhere. I know next January we'll, of course, be at the the WISA show, which is the Western and English Sports Association Industry Trade Show. And that'll be next January, assuming nothing else changes in the world between now and then. Right. But we have an Instagram page, which is Genuine Billy Cook, and our website is Genuine Billy Cook, and you can find us there. And, give us a call or shoot us an email if you have any questions. We're here to take care of you. We want to build quality products, but we want to, more than that, we want them to be something that our customers want. So if it's not exactly like you want off the website, we can do anything for you.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'll wrap it up, man. I got one last question for you, and we ask everybody that comes on the show this question. What is your definition of a cowboy?
My definition of a cowboy would be the strong, silent type who has a lot of integrity. Somebody who doesn't speak unless they have something to really say, and who means what they say and does what they say and doesn't back down from a fight.
I dig it. Well, Adam, thank you again, man. I appreciate your time coming on. It was a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope to see you down the road, man. If you're ever around Louisiana, stop by and check us out.